Hello and welcome to my review of the Tyranid Toxicrene. This model will cost you £44, which makes it the same price as an exocrine, which is like an artillery unit, and it also makes it £9 more than a Tyranid. I'll do some size comparisons later, but the model itself was quite straightforward to build, not as enjoyable as like the Tyranid that I recently built. Its footprint is absolutely huge. I mean, good luck storing this one, because all those toxic lashes just make the model huge, really huge. I do like the dead Terminator Space Marine that you get with it. With a little bit of modification, I think you possibly could use him as a Terminator, but yeah, you'd need a fair bit, and also like his helmet is kind of caved in and you'd have to do something on these chest plate. But it's possible, it is possible. Now what's also possible is magnetising this. I'll show you the spare parts in a mo, but you can magnetise the head and magnetise the front arms so that it can become a Maleceptor quite easily. And you could possibly even magnetise these toxic glands or whatever I think they must be toxic glands, right? You can also magnetise those, but put the magnets inside the shell of the model, and then put a little magnet on the underside of these, because if you don't have these on, then you've got like the brains that the Maleceptor has, and I do think it looks a bit odd if you've only magnetised the head and not done anything about these, because the Maleceptor is a very intimidating looking model. Well, they both are actually, especially with those brains showing. But it is possible, you can magnetise this without too much difficulty. I want one of each, and I don't really play many games, so for me it's not a tactical sort of decision of having both of them if I want the model to be solid, secure, and a bit of a showcase. So there we go, that is the Toxicrene. Really nice model. I love how they've sculpted all of these toxic lashes. So yeah, I really like the look of this model, much like anything we've never seen before. I think this came out 3 years ago. It's quite a newish model really in the whole range, but yeah, I like the fact that they kind of went away from the, I mean, I love the Trigon, I really do, but they went away from the Trigon sort of like alien type-esque heads, and they've gone for something completely different, a bit like the Venom Throes actually as well. They've gone for a completely different kind of look. I love this chubby little tail that he's got too, quite cute really. But yeah, horrific kind of stuff of nightmares, a bit like the horror specs as well. Lovely looking model, I think, and a great addition. What I'll do now is I'll just show you all the spare parts. You don't get that many spare parts actually, I have to say. It's pretty much just the head and the tongue and the scything talons of the Maleceptor. So these are the talons that you get. So you can magnetise those and put them in place of the toxic lashes if you wish, and it's quite straightforward and easy to do actually. So that's those, and then this is the head of the Maleceptor. Like I said, very kind of intimidating look. I mean, a bit like a rhino almost, with these big horns, sharp scythes on the top. So yeah, whichever one you go for, it's going to be striking fear into your enemy. And then this is a different leg. You can have this leg down and not bumped up on the Terminator there, if you don't want to. And then this is the tongue for the Maleceptor too, which you sort of do have to put in, because otherwise he's got like a square type hole in his mouth, so you'd have to put that in sort of like that, I think. Yeah, I think it would go like that. So there you go, they're the spare parts. And now I'll show you some size comparisons. So next to a Gene Stealer, this model absolutely dwarfs a Gene Stealer. Look how small the little Gene Stealer is compared to this big creature. Really sort of dominates that. Next to a Warrior, again, it dominates a Warrior. Very big model for Tyranids. I do love these big creatures much more than the little ones for Tyranids. Next to a Broodlord, there you go. So yeah, much bigger than a Broodlord. They share similar sort of characteristics with these vents or exhausts on the top. And then I'll show you him next to some big creatures. So the Trigon, which I had at the start. Trigon's definitely got a lot of presence, being that height, but the Toxicrene has just got so much presence with the toxic lashes. I mean, this thing is going to take a big space on your battlefield, on your battle board to play. We're talking what, 10 inches or so width-wise, which is a fair distance. Can also sort of. So it's an old reunion they're having right now. So yeah, so that's the Toxicrene. Next to another big sort of creature, the Tyranid. Tyranid has got it on the height, more so the width, but the toxic lashes really do add to the model's sort of size. But hopefully that's helpful for you. They're both pretty big. I think the Tyranid has more of a big sort of look to it. This has this big sort of head and these lashes, but its body and its tail is sort of, you know, not as sort of thin, not as elongated and stuff as the Tyranid. But you can't go wrong with either of these two. But just put it in perspective, obviously the Toxicrene is £9 more than the Tyranid. And finally, I'll just do a couple of size comparisons for Space Marines. Obviously there's a Terminator there, so I don't really need to get out a Terminator for this, but here's just a normal sort of Space Marine, and then a Primaris. So yeah, he is bigger than a Primaris. Sort of like his tentacle things almost come up to the head of the Primaris there. But you could just imagine, you know, a group of 5 or 6 Space Marines trying to shoot at this and trying to find a weak point, and these toxic lashes just coming from nowhere, you know, and causing havoc. So now this is my part of the review where I'll talk about all of the rules for the Toxicrene. You'll find it in the heavy support choices in the codex, in the new codex. Unfortunately it is heavy support and not elites. Would have been nice if it was in elites, but then again the Maleceptor is in elites, so take it as you will. I am only saying that because the heavy support choices seem quite full in the Tyranid codex. You got everything from Morlocks to Trigons to Carnifexes, Tyranifexes and Exocrines, so you got a lot of heavy support already in the codex. So a Toxicrene will cost you 8 power points, so that's not too bad. That is 3 power points less than a Tyranid. It will cost you 157 points. So compared to a Tyranid, that's cheaper as well, 157 as opposed to 181. Its stat line, it's faster than a Tyranid. It's faster than a Maleceptor. And actually, it's as fast as Gene Stealers. So it's no slouch. You know, this thing, 8 inches every turn, it will get places. And I think one of the reasons why it will get places is because it doesn't really have a very good ranged weapon. The longest ranged weapon that it has is the Choking Spores. So it's equipped with the Choking Spores and the massive toxic lashes. So the Choking Spores is only 12-inch range. So how I would use this model is I would, again, like the Swarm Lord, put him in a Tyrannocyte and drop him from orbit, because he's got under the 14 wounds. Although he moves 8 inches, it's going to take him a while to get across the battlefield, and 12 wounds, so it will only take a couple of turns for the enemy to sort of wear it down. So the Choking Spores, it's a ranged 12-inch weapon, assault D6, strength 3, damage D3, but you can re-roll failed wounds for the weapon. And in addition, units attacked by the weapon don't gain any bonus for their saving throws for being in cover. So that's an alright weapon. It's close range, 12 inches. You can get possibly 6 shots out of it. It's only strength 3 though, but you can have damage of up to 3 on it. You can re-roll the failed wounds, so that sort of helps with the strength 3, and they're not going to get any cover saves and things from it. So like I say, its movement is 8 inches, and its weapon skill, strength and attacks are all based on the remaining wounds it has. Its ballistic skill is 4+, its toughness is 7, it's got 12 wounds, leadership 7 and a save of 3+. Doesn't have a invulnerable save, unfortunately, like the Maleceptor, which has a 4+ invulnerable, which is pretty decent, but then again obviously that's got the psychic barrier. So wounds wise, if it's got between 7 and 12, the weapon skill is 3+, that's decent. Strength is 7 and it's got 6 attacks. That's awesome, 6 attacks. 4 to 6 wounds, its weapon skill drops to 4+, strength 6 and attacks 5. And remaining wounds 1 to 3, weapon skill drops to 5+, strength 5, attacks 4. Now its massive toxic lashes, you can either shoot them or use them in melee. So when you shoot them, they range 8 inches, assault d6, strength user, which will be 7, AP -2, not too bad, and damage d3, and they can be fired within 1 inch of an enemy unit, and can target enemy units with 1 inch of friendly units. In addition, you can reroll fail wounds for the weapon. So that's not too bad. You're getting a strength 7, AP -2 weapon here with a damage of d3 that can, again, reroll the wounds. If you use them in melee, however, again you get strength 7, -2 and d3 damage. Again, you can reroll failed wound rolls for the weapon, but it always fights first in the fight phase, even if it didn't charge. If the enemy units that have charged have similar ability, then you alternate choosing units to fight with, starting with the player whose turn it is taking place. So that's pretty good. It will always fight first in the fight phase at the strength 7, 6 attacks, AP -2, damage d3. Its abilities, instinctive behaviour, so again, going to need that synapse. Acid blood. Each time the model loses a wound in the fight phase, you roll a d6, and on a 6, the unit that inflicted the damage suffers a mortal wound after all of the attacks have been resolved. So you assault this thing in close combat, not only are you not attacking first, every wound that you knock off it, it's got a 1 in 6 chance of inflicting a mortal wound on you. Hypertoxic Miasma. Now this is another one of the reasons why you get it. At the end of the fight phase, you roll a d6 for each enemy model, not unit, each enemy model within 1 inch of any toxicrenes. On a 6, that model's unit suffers a mortal wound. Not only when the enemy is within 1 inch of the toxicrene on a 6 does it suffer a mortal wound, but every time you're knocking off a wound, it's doing the same thing. So this is a sort of mortal wound inflictor in disguise, I think. Because that leads me on to the next ability, which is Frenzied Death Throes. So not your normal death throes that you have with lots of the other Tyranid creatures. If this model is reduced to 0 wounds, you roll the d6, and on a 6, each enemy unit within 3 inches suffers 3 mortal wounds. So again, I would think that it losing its wound, 1 wound to 0, would be the acid blood. If it dies before the end of the fight phase, you're not going to get the hypertoxic miasma, but you could have a potential of another 3 wounds. So as it dies, you've got a potential there of 4 mortal wounds to inflict on a unit, which is pretty decent. So it's a bit of a kind of kamikaze type unit, really. It'll do okay in close combat, you know, fighting first, strength 7, AP -2 and d3 damage. But where its strengths really lie in is its speed of 8 inches, which is good, and its ability to inflict mortal wounds when it gets damage taken on it, and with models just being models, not units, models being in close combat with it. So the way I would tackle this thing is shoot it from a very far distance. You know, if you're within sort of bolt gun range of it, in 2 turns it's going to be on you, you know. So try and shoot it from afar. In summary, I think it's a fantastic looking model, and it's one of the main models on my list, along with the Trigon and Tyrannofex, that got me into collecting Tyranids. Remember, I never collected Tyranids before, so these are all kind of new models to me, a new army to me. But I sort of overlooked them before, and then realised that actually it's really cool looking models, and the codex is fantastic and brings along a lot of good rules and little tweaks and things to the units. Anyway, what do you guys think about the Toxicrene? Do you think it's a good model? Have you had any experiences of it in any of your games? Put it in the comments below. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. For the Norn Queen.